Cell Block D, 6:47 a.m. Roll call. The guard's flashlight sweeps across the rows of bunks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, he counts again. His hand trembles as he reaches for his radio. We have a situation in D block. Within minutes, the entire facility is locked down. Sirens wail. Guards sprint through corridors. The warden is woken at home with the call every prison administrator dreads. 3 inmates, gone. But here's the thing that would keep him awake for months. They didn't tunnel out. They didn't riot. They didn't scale walls topped with razor wire. They walked out the front door. And what happened next? The authorities buried it so deep, you've probably never heard this story. Until now. To understand how impossible this escape was, you need to understand the prison itself. We're talking about a maximum security facility. Let's call it Oak Ridge Correctional, though the real name has been scrubbed from most public records. Built in 1987, designed with one purpose, to hold the people society most wanted to forget. The layout was textbook modern security architecture. The perimeter consisted of a 25-foot concrete wall topped with coiled razor wire, guard towers at each corner, manned 24/7 with armed officers who had clear sight lines across every inch of the yard. Between the cell blocks and Freedom, 5 separate checkpoints. Each one required electronic key cards, biometric scans, and visual confirmation from control room operators watching through bulletproof glass. The technology was state-of-the-art for its time. Motion sensors in the corridors, weight-sensitive floors, cameras covering every angle except inside the cells themselves, and even those had bars you couldn't fit a fist through. The human element was equally formidable. Guards rotated shifts unpredictably. Inmates were counted 6 times per day. Random searches, 0 patterns. For 15 years, Oak Ridge had a perfect record, 0 escapes. It had held gang leaders, serial killers, and organized crime bosses who had resources on the outside that most of us can't imagine. None of them got out. The warden, Harold Brennan, gave tours to law enforcement from other states, showcasing his fortress. This facility, he'd say, tapping the thick security manual, is escape-proof. Meet Marcus Chen, inmate number 847392. 42 years old, former electrical engineer, serving 18 years for securities fraud and embezzlement. Not exactly the profile of an escape artist. Chen was quiet, model prisoner, worked in the prison's vocational training program teaching basic electrical repair. The guards liked him, said he was one of the few who seemed genuinely interested in rehabilitation. Then there's David Oz Oswalt, inmate number 851204. Ex-military, dishonorable discharge, inside for armed robbery and assault, 15-year sentence, 8 years served. Oz was known for his discipline, kept to himself, worked out obsessively, never caused trouble. And finally, Tommy Reeves, inmate number 846771, the youngest at 28, computer fraud, 7-year sentence, a hacker who'd stolen over $2 million through a sophisticated phishing scheme before he could legally rent a car. 3 men, different backgrounds, different crimes, different cell blocks. On paper, they had nothing in common, but that was exactly the point. The thing about prisons is that they're designed around predictable criminal behavior. Guards watch for gang affiliations, for men who knew each other on the outside, for obvious connections. Nobody was watching these 3. Chen and Oz met in the prison chapel, a place guards rarely scrutinized because, well, they wanted to encourage positive influences. Then there's Tommy. He was recruited through the prison library of all places, a carefully placed book on electrical engineering, pages marked with nearly invisible pencil dots. It would be 6 months before these 3 men exchanged a single spoken word. March 2003. Chen notices something during his electrical work in the administration building. The prison's security system, all those cameras, sensors, electronic locks, ran on a centralized computer system housed in a server room adjacent to the main control center. But here's the critical flaw. When it was installed in 1987, they built in a backup power system in case of outages. That backup system had a manual override panel in a maintenance closet that Chen had legitimate access to. The plan crystallized over 4 months of carefully coded messages, library books returned with marginalia, chess moves in the rec yard that meant nothing to observers but formed coordinates and timings. Even their work assignments were strategic. Chen in electrical, Oz in the kitchen with access to delivery schedules, Tommy in the library where he could research guard rotation patterns through old administrative documents nobody thought to secure. Here's what they figured out. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, between 2:15 and 2:30 a.m., there was a 15-minute gap when the overnight shift change occurred. Not in the guard positions, those stayed manned, but in the control room monitoring stations. The supervisors rotated their breaks during this window. 15 minutes, that's all they had. If Chen could access that backup panel, he could trigger what would look like a system malfunction, cameras flickering, locks glitching, and sensors going haywire for exactly 90 seconds before backup protocols kicked in. 90 seconds of chaos, but chaos the guards would interpret as technical failure, not an escape attempt. Oz had been mapping delivery schedules. Every Thursday morning at 2:45 a.m., a food services truck arrived with the weekly supplies. It parked in the loading bay, inside the first security perimeter, but outside the main cell blocks. The truck would wait there for 20 to 30 minutes while inventory was checked. Tommy had been patient, so patient. For 3 months, he'd been using his library computer access, monitored, but only for internet activity, to slowly, carefully create a keycard cloner using components so basic the guards didn't recognize them. A chip from a calculator, wire from a broken fan, a magnetic strip reader salvaged from a broken library card scanner. Every piece collected over weeks, every piece innocent on its own. Together, they could clone any keycard in the facility. But the most brilliant part, the dummies, they weren't just going to vanish. That would trigger an immediate manhunt. Instead, they built dummies, prison movie cliché, except they did it right. Chen sculpted heads from papier-mâché using toilet paper and paste made from food starch, hair from the prison barbershop floor, carefully collected over months, clothing stuffed with towels to approximate body shape. In a dark cell, during a quick flashlight sweep, they'd pass for sleeping inmates, long enough anyway. Thursday, June 12, 2003, 2:03 a.m. Chen is in his cell, waiting. His heart is pounding so hard, he's certain the guard will hear it during the 2 a.m. count. The flashlight beam sweeps across his face. He keeps his breathing steady, eyes closed. The guard moves on. 2:08, Tommy's turn. He'd spent the evening in the library on legitimate work, typing up a report for his vocational training program. But he'd stayed late with permission because he had asked earlier that day, and the guards knew he was harmless. The library was on the ground floor, near the maintenance corridors. At 10:10, Tommy told the guard he was finishing up. The guard nodded, went back to his rounds. Policy said someone would escort him back to his cell in 15 minutes. Tommy had 12. He moved fast, down the service corridor, using the cloned keycard to access the maintenance level. Chen had told him exactly which panel, which door. 2:14 a.m. He found it, sent the signal. 3 quick flashes of a pen light aimed at a specific camera, the one Chen had subtly angled during a repair 2 weeks ago. Chen saw it from his cell window. Impossible? No, because Chen's random cell assignment was in D block, 2nd floor, which just happened to have a sight line to that one camera if you stood at the right angle. Nothing about this was random. 2:15 exactly, Chen made his move. The guards were used to seeing him out of his cell occasionally, medical issues which he'd been carefully establishing for months, a documented sleep disorder. The night guards knew him, trusted him enough that when he appeared at his cell door looking distressed, saying he needed to use the medical wing bathroom, they escorted him without much fuss. Procedure said they should call it in, but Chen had built a reputation. The guards were tired. It was a quiet night. One guard, That's all it took. One guard who made a judgment call to be human instead of following protocol. 3 maximum security inmates, Chen, Oz, and Tommy, escaped Oak Ridge Correctional Facility on a quiet night in 2003. No violence, no alarms, just precision. Chen, an engineer, triggered a 90-second power flutter by brushing a hidden switch he'd installed months earlier. Lights flickered, locks cycled, cameras stuttered. In that window of confusion, all 3 converged in the loading bay. They zip-tied the food delivery driver, leaving him safe but restrained, took his truck, clipboard, and ID badge, and drove straight out, first through the inner checkpoint, then the main gate. The guards saw exactly what they expected to see, a routine delivery crew. They waved them through. By 6:47 a.m., empty cells revealed the truth. But instead of a manhunt, a cover-up began. Embarrassed officials labeled them minimum security inmates who walked off a work detail, a lie buried to protect reputations. The FBI investigated quietly, but the trail vanished. The truck was wiped clean 47 miles away. A blue sedan carried them to invisibility. 5 years later, a letter postmarked Brazil arrived at the FBI. "We're alive. We're not hurting anyone. Stop looking." They escaped not because they had to. They had less than 7 years left on their sentences, but because they could. They exploited not just technology, but human complacency and bureaucratic pride. And in doing so, they pulled off the most successful prison escape nobody noticed. Chen, Oz, and Tommy remain free. The case is open, but no one's really looking anymore.